Hello, everybody, and thank you so much, Mindy. Mindy is our newest board member for MUSC Health, and she joins two other fabulous females. We have Ms. Jean Leatherman and Charlene Lowry on our board, so thank you for that. And I also wanted to thank Merritt for inviting me to speak today. So she said, "We'd like for you to speak." I said, "Okay, I'm honored. Thank you." And then she said, "We want you to speak on your personal journey." And I thought, I don't really like speaking about myself as much. I thought maybe leadership topic or a healthcare topic. And then she really made it bad. She said, "And we want you and Donna Iskin to speak." I said, "Okay, I've heard her speak before." She is a phenomenal speaker. But I'm really blessed to share this stage with Donna today. And I am going to give you a glimpse into my healthcare leadership journey. I'm old. I have had 40 years. So my remarks were like 35 minutes. And then there were 25, then 20. I got down to 15. So 15 minutes of a long, long healthcare journey. And I've entitled it "From the Tobacco Fields to the C-Suite." Now, I know my audience. I know it's primarily female. My husband said, "I can't believe you aren't talking about Botox. You're talking about tobacco fields." But please, somebody tell me that you know something about tobacco. Please. Yay. Okay. All right. There's a rhyme to this, I promise you. So I always knew I wanted to be a nurse. My father, I can see right now, sitting at my breakfast table, reading the newspaper. He had 3 subscriptions. And he would all the time say, "Look at all these monads for nurses. Wherever you are, you can land a job." And he was certainly right. I was number 5 of 6 children. And my older siblings always said I got away with everything. I just think they were too doggone tired by the time they got around to number 5. I only had 2. So I believe that's probably the case. My parents were really pretty strict growing up, especially my mother. She was a very prim and proper Southern lady and always had that Amy Vanderbilt Book of Etiquette by her favorite chair. She believed in handwritten notes, and I've inherited that from her. I love the joy of sending a handwritten note to others. Growing up on the family farm in Kingsburg was a blessing, and it really did influence my leadership journey. My family grew tobacco, corn, soybeans, and cotton. All 6 of us worked on the farm. And I think that's why they had a big family. So we could all work on the farm. And I certainly did my share. I cropped. Then I was able to drive the tractor. And then I graduated to being the person responsible for the garden, which was huge, and cooking for a family of 8. And even today, I have not mastered how to cook for 2 people. You heard me say I went to Clemson. No jokes about Monday night, please. It's going to be a long season. And it was hard. Nursing school was very hard. But I did manage to balance nursing school with Greek life. And I was a Chi Omega, and I did have some leadership roles in Chi Omega. And my senior year, I became president of Chi Omega. After graduating from nursing school, I had a variety of clinical positions before getting into leadership. And in fact, I remember my first interview for a leadership position. They asked me, "Tell us about your leadership experience." It was a panel. And I said, I was really young. I said, "I have 0 leadership experience. But I was the president of Chi Omega." And I got a call that afternoon, offered me the job, and they said, "We figured if you could be the president of 100 girls, you can lead this group." And so I was excited about that. One of my bosses early in my career encouraged me to go to grad school, and I was really glad to have that nudge. So I received my master's degree from MUSC. And back then, we had to go to school. So Charleston was about 2 hours from my house. I would leave on Monday morning, I would stay in Charleston. I had a relative there until Thursday evening. Then I would work on the weekends. And it was extremely intense, but it was worth it. So I often tell people, if you look at my resume, it's pretty boring. I've been, well, initially I did clinical positions. I did some work with DHAC. I was a program nurse specialist. Many of you probably know Dr. John Chapman. I was his first nurse, OBGYN. He's retired. I tell him I taught him everything he knows all the time. And my first hospital job was in MUSC Charleston. So I have come full circle now, back to MUSC. Early in my career, when I was the CNO at Lake City, I had 5 CEOs in 1 year. 5. I would get to learn their leadership style. That one was out. A new one was in. Today, I have the very best leadership team. My CEO is phenomenal. These group of ladies here, phenomenal. So I've been really, really blessed with that. So my personal journey is what Merritt said. And I have not shared this with a lot of people. And certainly I haven't shared it in an open forum. But today I'm going to share with you something personal. I was at the Lake City Hospital. It was a CNO, COO role for 10 years. And the division president asked me, would I be willing to also oversee the King Street Hospital. It was all Carolinas. Carolinas, Lake City, Carolinas, King Street, Carolinas, Florence. Now, of course, you aren't going to say no to something like that. So the last 2 of those 12 years, I had that dual role. So I started getting these phone calls from people, but it was about Florence. It was about Florence campus. And I would refer them to the CNO Florence. Well, I've got more. And I would explain I've got responsibility for Lake City and King Street. I would refer to the CNO Florence. And it happened like 5 times, which is just so odd that started happening. Then, months later, I got a call that the CNO in Florence was leaving. And some of the leaders in Florence asked me would I consider, coming to the Florence campus. And you have to know that I am a baby boomer. Anybody in here is a baby boomer, we are very loyal. And just the thought of interviewing somewhere else was like I was not being very loyal. But I prayed about it. And I prayed about it. And I prayed about it. And I decided, you know what, maybe I should at least throw my name in the hat. So I did. And I literally told only one person that I was interviewing for that job. That was my husband. I interviewed for the job. I still prayed hard. I needed some kind of sign because I was very comfortable in my position at the 2 hospitals. And I just needed some sign, and I really wanted to do his will. So I interviewed just with the CEO at the time, and I can remember like it was yesterday. I'm walking into the house, the phone's ringing, it's the kitchen phone, and I answer it, and it's my preacher. And he said, Costa, I know this is going to be odd. Sounds odd, but I felt so compelled to call you to tell you I had a dream about you last night. And you were at that new hospital they're building on Pamplico Highway. I had goosebumps everywhere. I literally just about dropped the phone. I said, there's nothing more vivid than getting that kind of answer to prayer. I was scared to say no when they offered me the job. So there's a book entitled, All I Really Need to Know, I Learned in Kindergarten. And I wanted to kind of take a little slant today and tell you many things I learned about leadership. I learned in the backfields. Not Botox, it's back to backfields. So it's quick. Lesson 1, work hard. Farmers work hard. And I remember my father working from sun up to sundown. And I always say I'm never claiming to be the smartest person in the room, but I will outwork somebody. I'll outwork. And I love the quote. Ross Simmons says, "Hustle beats talent when talent doesn't hustle." I just love that. Hustle beats talent when talent doesn't hustle. So that's to me like leadership. It's just like farming. You work really, really hard, you invest your time, you create great habits. And John Maxwell, who I love his book, says, dreams don't work unless you do. That was lesson 1. Lesson 2, encourage and support growth. Tobacco was king when I was growing up. And I remember riding around with my dad day after day, week after week, looking at the tobacco fields, from planting to suckering to cropping to putting in the barns to taking out the barns to going to the warehouse for the sale. It was a process. And I think we have to do that same thing as leaders. It's a long process. If we want to grow a service, we don't just say, we want to grow a service. We have to recruit. We have to recruit physicians and new employees. We have to buy equipment. It's a long process. And then the growth of our employees. I think that's so important. And that's what gives me joy today. Early in my career, I needed to grow myself. I needed to get higher education. I needed to get certified. Now, success to me is seeing our others, our care team members, our employees grow. Lesson 3 is get your hands dirty. My late father-in-law used to love to tell the story the first time he met me. I was in Tobacco. I was 12 years old, and I was dirty. And he would have never imagined that 10 years later, he would be my father-in-law. But I think as a leader, we have to get our hands dirty too. You know, we need to be the ones to jump in when work needs to be done and not be afraid to get our hands dirty. Now, lesson 4, remove the bad things. So I did see some women raise their hand about tobacco, so you know what I'm talking about. Tobacco would get a flower on top, and we needed to top it. It's called topping tobacco because you wanted the nutrients to go to the leaves. And then tobacco would grow suckers. That's the bad things. We had to sucker the tobacco because we wanted everything to go to the leaves. And then tobacco would get worms. And not all the insecticides and pesticides handle that, so we would remove them by hand. And I think about that, and I think about that in healthcare in my journey. We have to remove the bad things too. Bad employees inhibit growth. So we have to remove them. And I can still remember the very first time I had to remove a bad employee. I mean, it hurt my heart, but we need to know as leaders, we have to remove the bad things. And I like something I read said, you need to determine if it's a skill issue or a will issue. And if it's a will issue and you coach them, but they still continue to do the bad things, you need to remove them. All right, lesson number 5, give your word and keep your word. You know, farmers by nature are pretty helpful, and I think they're very trusting. My father had very few written documents. It was a handshake. And I think that's the same thing that's been important to me over my career is if I'm going to say something, I'm going to do it. I think that's extremely important. And you may have heard the Warren Buffett quote. He says it takes 20 years to build a reputation and only 5 years to ruin it. So keep your word. Lesson 6, consider the season. Farming obviously has seasons. The summer months were hot, and the summer months were busy with tobacco. The winter months were used to repair farm equipment, typically. So there are also seasons in healthcare. You may know that we're all challenged with filling our healthcare positions. Nurses, respiratory therapists, surgical techs, the list goes on and on. And by the year 2030, it's predicted that South Carolina will have the 4th worst nursing shortage in the nation. So Donna and I are always trying to think of things we can do to mitigate that. And then we have the season of increased behavioral health. It's real. Our emergency departments are filled with behavioral health patients. So I'm excited to share with you that we are building a 63-bed behavioral health hospital where the old Bruce Hospital is, and we're partnering with Donna and with Hope Health. So consider the season. Lesson 7, about finished. Water often and fertilize appropriately. So farmers have to water often. They have irrigation systems, right? And you have to fertilize according to the crop you're planting. If it's tobacco, you use one fertilizer. If it's soybeans, we use something different. And I think that's the same way with our care team members. I love to water our care team members. In fact, that's one of the greatest joys I get at work is to rail on our care team members and to praise them for the great work they're doing. And also it's important that I know and our leaders know what they need to be fed. Is it, I want growth and development, or is it, I want more work-life balance? So that's knowing your care team members, your employees. Lesson 8, control what you can control, but accept that some things are out of your control. So I can see my father right now on our front porch looking up at the sky, hoping and praying for rain. Obviously, he wasn't in control of the weather, but he knew that that lack of rain could make or break the crop. And so there are things in healthcare we can't control. We can't control legislation. And on a personal level, I certainly had no control over our leadership changes. And we've had plenty. I think MUSC's it, and they're here to stay. But I did know that those transitions were very stressful. And I wasn't naive. I knew that with each transition, it would be reasonable that they would wipe out the entire C-suite and bring their own. So I've always said healthcare is a very small world. Don't burn bridges. Whoever's your boss today, you may have a new boss tomorrow, but it may be a whole other system. So don't burn bridges. You don't know who your boss might be. Lesson 9, don't monkey. Please tell me y'all heard that term. Okay. So, oh my gosh, I can remember being in the back of the bills again. We weren't talking about heat index of 110 like we do today, but it was probably a heat index. I'm sure it was a heat index of 110. But you're in the back of fields, you're cropping tobacco, you're getting lightheaded, you're getting dizzy, it's kind of spinning around you, and all of a sudden you monkey. And today, obviously, I know that those are all signs of dehydration. We had this big orange igloo cooler, and we just didn't drink enough water. So we would monkey. So what I'm talking about, self-care, and we talk about that a lot with our leaders. That is so important that you have self-care. There's a question on our employee engagement survey that says, do you have the ability to disconnect from work? And we take that seriously. Leadership's 24/7, but we know that people have to disconnect to be their best self. My way of disconnecting, she mentioned, is my grandchildren. And just had another one 3 weeks ago today, and it's just a good way to disconnect. And my last one is to celebrate when you're in the short rows. I have an assistant CNO over there. She always talks about being in the short rows. And hopefully you've heard that term, but I can remember, those tobacco rows were so long, so long. We'd get to the end and those rows got shorter and shorter and shorter. We were celebrating. We knew that the day was coming to an end. So we have a lot to celebrate, and just want to share with you how proud I am of our team. MUSC, our division, we have the highest employee engagement of all the MUSC hospitals. There are 15 hospitals. We have the highest patient satisfaction engagement. And over here I have the Director of Nursing of Black River. They have the highest out of all the hospitals in patient satisfaction. We have the highest retention rate of all the hospitals, nurse retention rate, RN retention rate. We have the lowest mortality. We have the lowest readmission rate. So just a tremendous team. I've been blessed throughout my career. So I'm in the short rows. I'm in it right now, and I want to just tell you to please drink plenty of water. I don't want you to monkey. And one more thing. My husband recently said, I think that preacher needs to call you again. I said, what are you talking about? He said, he needs to have a dream about you retiring. I enjoyed it. Y'all, I wish you the very best. God bless you.